so excited.
It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielson, Matt Cassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Two Guys and a Goalie right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Tom Gazzola in for Dustin Nielson, who is partaking in the Edmonton Elks Alumni Golf Tournament. Today, the boys, LTE and Dusty, were on location at the quarry. It looked like a beautiful morning, a little bit brisk this morning, but the vibes were hot. And the Grey Cup made an appearance. There's Matthew Wanek, who's fixing the studio mic that has endured a year of abuse from all of us.
All of us.
One
person.
Well, Dusty. I try to treat it with respect and kid gloves, but yeah, Maddie's working on it. He got so frustrated during the lock shop. He's like, I gotta fix this thing, and Maddie is our technical guru and engineer and jack of all trades, and he's doing a fantastic job.
Look at that.
Joaquin Gage in studio as we get set for episode number 3 of EST Afternoons. Hernan Salas in the building, Reed Wilkins in the building, YouTube Trev is here, and of course we've got Maddie Cassian at the Satellite Studios.
That's like Kimi Antonelli putting the Mercedes into the wall and you just fixing it for FP3. That's
Boom.
Well done. Clicks from Adawan.
Matthew Adawan gets around to clicks with a smiling George Russell watching as his car gets absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, I wish they had
Monza.
The thought bubbles at that point, but whatever.
That's okay. Did you fix it?
I have to just unplug it if you want.
All right. Well, let's. Yeah. Okay. Gage, you're taking away for like 30 seconds.
Sure, I can take it away for that whole 30 seconds while you Cass, we were discussing how you had some leftovers. What type of leftovers did you have today for lunch?
Yeah, I went with a little lasagna leftovers. Now, it's from a couple days ago. Last night was pancakes. It was my middle daughter's birthday. The one that has made a couple appearances on the show, just bursting into the room, excited about winning something or doing something when I'm at the home satellite studio. So she wanted pancakes for dinner. So yesterday was pancakes for the girls,
Nice.
but still had some lasagna left over. And you know what? It's always good as leftover. I feel like if we had to do like a draft of leftovers, lasagna would be pretty high up on the list.
It's delicious.
It's way up there. So was this store bought or did you? Is this?
No.
Oh, you labor intensified this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Labor intensive. We went with the fresh noodles, so you don't have to parboil them or pre-cook the noodles. Like they're the fresh ones that you lay down in there. A little bit more cottage cheese than I typically like in the cheese part of it, but just from a health standpoint to get some good protein in there and keep the fat content down. But I did manage to talk the wife into letting me put some ricotta in with the cottage cheese.
Bechamel sauce in there too, or no?
No, didn't do any bechamel. Again, like we're trying to have a semi-health conscious lasagna. So a little leaner on the beef. But I make a mean, not to toot my own horn here, but I make a pretty mean bolognese
You're
at
a hockey
home.
player.
And so
Yeah, you do.
yeah. So I kind of use that like as my meat filling. Now I don't not quite as saucy, right? Because you want it to be meat. You don't want the lasagna to be watery, but it's the meat sauce is pretty spectacular that goes inside of there. So with the cheese and stuff, like it was solid. It's a good lasagna.
One last question on the lasagna front. How many layers do you go?
Ooh.
So that's meat, noodle, cheese, noodle.
Just count the noodles. How many layers of noodles?
Just three layers of noodle.
Okay.
Oh, wait, noodle. Just 3 layers of noodles. 3 layers of noodles. Yeah.
I've seen a guy on TikTok or whatever, one of these.
Yeah.
I follow all those cookie guys. He says what his last meal would be, and I think it's in, I want to say Boston, but I'm not sure. But there's a place with a 50-layer lasagna.
Come on. That's heaven.
Yeah, but it takes like 3 days to make, right? Because you're putting it in and shrinking it down, but you can see it afterwards. All the 50 layers of lasagna in there.
See, the one thing with that is like I feel like there's not like you're not getting enough meat in a lot of ways because it's all noodle at that point, like, or it feels like it's all noodle. One of the best lasagnas I had, I can't remember the name of the place, but it was an Italian place in Milwaukee of all cities. But they had like a 16-layer lasagna there, and that was pretty epic. That was pretty good. So I haven't seen like a 50-layer. I can't, like, how long would it have to be sitting there, like, to get that thing flattened out enough that you could do it?
Oh, you got to put some weight on there. But you heard it here first, everybody. Cass likes lots of meat, not the noodle.
Love it. All meat, no noodle.
Oh, it is Two Guys and a Goalie presented by GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to become a part of the team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca and click Ready to Work, or visit their page at indeed.ca with the Next Person Up program at GS Construction. It's not just a job, it's a career, and we have great teamwork here, and we can say that because you get the example of Joaquin dropping Cass loves the meat, not just the noodle, or Gager on Cass. That's beautiful, boys. Not an HR violation at all, because it is the noon hour, and that means lunch, and we hope you're enjoying your lunch hour with us. Tom Gazzola in for Dusty, Joaquin Gage in studio here at ESTHQ, and Matty Cassian just fresh off of eating some leftover lasagna that he deliciously described. A couple of things came in via the Nasty Chat. Get into the conversation. Nasty Chat if you're watching on YouTube. Obviously, Paris Jewelers inbox if you're over on the audio side of things, 780-218-9999. Our Jess Jackson from over at 100.3 The Bear says, how many days left over? I'm a big fan of pushing it, Cass.
Yeah, it was cooked on Monday or whatever. Perfect. Monday was the day, so a couple days, which is nice. You know, flavors get to sit in there.
Yes.
You know, the bolognese, some of that just kind of marinates in itself, and then one of the big things that is great about reheated lasagna is a lot of times rookie lasagna mistake is you cutting it open right after you pull it out of the oven.
Oh yeah,
don't do that.
Right. Yeah,
that's a big no-no.
Do not do that. No, that's a huge no-no. Even if you have to reheat it a little bit to warm it back up to the temperature you want, is you got to let it sit. Like, you got to give that thing an hour to 2 hours. You know, for all the people that are like, ooh, bacteria, like whatever, give it an hour. Let it cool for an hour and then warm it back up if you have to. Mm-hmm. But it just really lets the starches sit in there from the noodles. If there's any starches, your cheese isn't too runny then at that point, and you don't end up with that water, because sometimes you can get, you don't want watery lasagna. Nobody want no watery lasagna. So let that sucker sit, or cook it a couple days ahead and then reheat it, because then you won't get the watery mess. So there's a little tip for this.
There's a great tip. Great tip. Spency 5 cents. He also via the Nasty Chat says, try ground pork in your lasagna, less greasy. Eva G has incorporated pork into her pasta sauce, and it's a mix of beef and pork. Phenomenal.
Yeah. Really good to do with meatballs too. If you're ever doing meatballs, having a little bit of pork in there is fantastic.
If you like your sauce a little spicy, a little shortcut, go to Costco, and it's cheaper. You get the hot and spicy sausages.
Yep.
And just pull those out of the little prophylactives, and you add that to your sauce. Game changer.
Yes. I think that is where she gets the.
Oh, really?
She goes to Costco, gets it,
and then just
cuts them, and away we go. It's absolutely fantastic. Eva G for a lady from Poland, marrying an Italian guy. My dad, Reno, did a great job embracing Italian food, and she's done a great job over the decades making it. So much so that my nono even said one time, "This pasta sauce is better than my nona's." Oh, right. That was like that was awesome. My nonna was not happy about that, but well done, Eva G. All right, as you enjoy your lunch and we bring you some hockey news and information, we've got players and teams and NHL cities going right now. Call them captain skates, call them informal skates, gatherings of a smattering of players from each team. They're starting to come into town, and that is the case here in Edmonton. I think the Oilers posted some pictures of their guys, Arvidsson, Ekholm, Hyman. They're in town right now. Number 52, it looked like maybe Roby Yarventi, who they traded Borgo for, I think was wearing 52. I'll have to confirm. I went on their website, looked at the roster, didn't see anything there. So maybe I'll just text the Oilers PR and be like, who the heck was that, guys? Captain skates, informal skates for you guys. Back in the day, Gager, did you guys do it? When did you roll into town? And when did this informal skate thing become a more formal thing?
Never invited, Tommy.
Oh, lovely.
Wasn't part of it at all. I came in right before training camp. I guess you could say I skated with a lot of maybe European players or Canucks. You know, I was out with their group. They had like the Canucks strength and conditioning guy. He rented one of the whole rinks out at 4 rinks or 8 rinks or whatever it was, and set up like a boxing gym and had squat racks and bench presses and little circuit trainings in a rink with the ice taken out, obviously.
That's cool.
And so guys would work out there, and he had camps going through, and he would essentially kind of like Perry Pern, where we would have a practice and then play a game afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could say I did that, and there you could see more and more like Linden and Bure and Jirke Lume, who was the best guy on the planet. He would be out there all the time and stuff. And some of the younger guys that I played in the minors with or against, they would roll in. But yeah, as for coming to Edmonton, I was never part of any captain skates.
Did they even do them back then?
I think Bucky had
changed.
some.
It feels like it has changed. That's why I'm asking. We'll start.
It sounded like Bucky maybe got some ice and Dougie was out there a little bit, but not to the extent where it is now. Like it seems like a structured practice what they're doing.
Well, we'll get into that too. It's something we'll lead to.
I was. I liked it that way a little bit too. I liked the fact that I was preparing myself. It was stressful enough once I got there. I didn't need a couple more days of added stress with my coaching staff critiquing me so early.
I think that's fair. I'll just ask one more, and then we'll get to Cass, because Cass, you're a generation after Gager. What were those Canucks guys like to skate with? You said Bure. That's the one. Obviously, I have a ton of respect for Trevor Linden, great hockey player for a long time. He's Mr. Canuck, as well as Stan Smeel, obviously. But like, how were some of those skates and the ridiculous moves? Like the year Bure did the tap off the skate, that was right when you were breaking into the NHL and might have made your debut already. Like,
oh yeah,
was he trying stuff on you? And he'd be like, "Well, I worked on Joaquin Gage in the summer. I'm going to do it in the preseason."
Well, Pavel didn't go back into his own end. It was summertime, right? Of course. He made sure that red line was dead straight. But I do believe that one time, I think I counted, it was like 10 or 11 breakaways he had on me. I didn't stop one of them.
Oh my.
And trust me, I was trying. And he did a different move every single time. Like usually guys they'll get back and do the same thing.
Yeah.
He shot it. He came in fast on the side, did backhand, put it between his legs, did the Forsberg one time. He just abused me that whole, and he left. He scored his like 11th goal or whatever, 15th goal of the thing, and then just went off the ice. He goes, I'm good. That's good. It was crazy because he didn't. He kind of blew, like he showed some speed once because a guy was right there, and then he could coast after that because he kind of give up or whatever. But it was scary how explosive this guy was.
Russian Rocket, that was his moniker for a reason. But he never got you in the regular season or in an actual game, did he?
No, I never played it. He had left Vancouver. I played against, it was McGillney was still there. Okay. Stopped him on an actual breakaway in a game.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
I just want to say that.
No, Linden was a jackass. Yeah, he was. I didn't like him that much. But again, Jirke Lume, I sat beside him a lot for some reason. I don't know how it ended up. And he would he would talk to you and ask you where you were from and what you're doing. Turns out he lived like just a few blocks away from where my parents lived. And because I go, oh, you live over here? I thought most guys live somewhere else. He goes, well, my wife is like a biological engineer at UBC or some weird.
Wow. Jeez.
The reason why he lived so close is so she was going to school at UBC still.
Right.
So just fascinating guy, unreal guy.
So he stayed in Vancouver.
I think so.
Because
Yeah,
he was there forever.
He was.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like he was so good. Like
Great
his
defenseman.
skating, just like edge control, his passing, just laser beam shot, and laughing the whole time. I just loved being out on the ice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, and we get to know the guys from the Edmonton area that are here, and they would do Perry Pern like you guys we talked about last week, and that was kind of maybe Perry Pern's still going on right now, but that was right in the wheelhouse of the timeline for Perry Pern. Now we're talking about guys going into their respective cities, and Cass, when you broke into the NHL, the informal skates were almost, I don't know if a requirement is the right way to describe it, but it was like, okay, by the end of informal skates, the whole team, it's understood, should be there, basically, unless you had a reason not to, right? Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, but that even over the course of my career started to change, where at the beginning it wasn't nearly as much as that. I mean, you had guys that get there 2 or 3 days before, just enough to get on the ice once or twice, but it became more and more of a thing which really does make sense. Like you want to get into town, you want to get set up, at wherever you're staying. You want to get comfortable. You want to get the jet lag or driving legs out of it. If you've been driving for like 3 or 4 days, if you drove your vehicle, you want to get that out of your system. And you want to get comfortable with the guys around you and start to feel like you are kind of at that final stage of being ready before camp starts. But for bubble guys like myself, it's extended tryout time to a certain extent. You don't always have coaches watching, but you better believe they're going to pop in and stick their head out and watch for a couple minutes, and so you're like, I gotta take this semi seriously. You're not hitting people, but it's like, no, you want to fine tune being ready for the season. But by the end of the career, I mean, it was typical where it's like, you had guys that wanted to be there, that were going to be there for like 6 or 7 days, and there was a little bit of an expectation as well to be there, and we saw that last year with the Edmonton Oilers, right, where the captain skates started early. And it's like, and they weren't just scrimmages. It's like you're out there with a mission and out there with things to accomplish, even if it's the captain that's running the drills that they probably just got from the coaches and said, hey, what do you want us to do? Let's go do that. Now with Edmonton in the playoff run this year, I think they learned a little bit of a lesson of it's going to be a long season, wait a little bit to ramp it up. But, hey, it's about that time. We're not that far out from camp, so where guys are getting into town, and not everyone's here yet, but I would assume over the next week you're really going to see that full roster or most of the guys on the roster that are here. And again, getting used to being on the ice with one another, getting back into that rhythm. One of the things I think it's made it easier, guys, is the now prevalence of having practice facilities and good practice facilities.
Good point.
And available practice facilities where even if we look like 12 or 13 years ago, kind of in my time, not every team had a great practice facility and didn't necessarily have this space to be able to have everyone there and everyone out there as guys come into town. Because it's usually not just the NHL players. Like oftentimes you have the AHL guys as well. And usually, the captains will kind of cut off. They'll usually pick, they'll say, okay, you have X NHL games played. This is who can come in the skates and this is who can't come to the skates.
Okay.
Or they'll look at guys that they know are bubble guys, like a Matt Savoy, let's say, for an example. Maybe not even necessarily a bubble guy, but guys that could play on the team that year, where usually it's like they're welcome to come, but you got to cut it off somewhere because you don't need, East Coast League guys that might make it to camp that are going to roll in, or that might make it to main camp that are taking up all the space for those captains' skates. But yeah, it's interesting how it's kind of shifted and changed. And again, they're informal.
With a touch of formalness.
But you kind of have to.
They're optional, right? They're optional. Just like how optional skates during the season were never like, I don't know. I don't think I ever took, unless I was like sick or hurt. I don't think I ever took the option. It was like, it's optional for some guys, not optional for a lot of them. I never got to take the option.
Some good text coming in, 780-218-9999. Nasty chat doing its thing like it usually does. Before we talk about the captain skates last year for the Edmonton Oilers compared to this year, by the way, talking with Reed Wilkins, and he said, hey, don't expect Connor McDavid to roll in until maybe tomorrow, but late in the week is what we were told, and then Draisaitl early next week, somewhere around there, if you're wondering about the big dogs. Were there any guys, Gager, that came in way overweight or out of shape, and you're like, uh-oh, you weren't having your informal skates? Do you recall any stories? And then Cass will obviously ask you the same thing.
Oh, God, there is. I forget his name. He was a French guy. This was when I was with Team Canada, and he was a Oilers first rounder. And he played in the Quebec League. I think he was injured, but he came to... He came to camp. He was a little bit heavy, went back to junior, but then he came to the American League team at the end of this. He didn't play. But again, I think he was injured, so he hasn't been working out.
One of those Swiss guys?
No, it was a French kid. And so he came to camp and obviously didn't do a thing all summer, to the point where I think he failed his physical. But because he was such a high pick, they said, well, we can't allow you on the ice because you're out of shape.
Right.
So you have to get back in shape. And from the camp before, they basically had him on the bike, just riding the bike and working out all the time.
Oh.
And I remember when Daryl Duke came up, rest in peace, Daryl kind of grabbed his tummy and gave him, it looked like he was meeting Santa for the first time.
Yeah.
And he's like, we got some work to do. And on the bike, and Daryl Daryl was like 1,000 miles an hour is how you had to, it was a terrible way to work out.
Yep.
And I forget, I want to say it's Frankie. So whatever, he got on the bike.
I'm looking it up. Francois Leroux?
No, not Leroux.
Okay.
He got on the bike and started pedaling and then just went, nope, got off, went and grabbed his gear, went back to the hotel and went back to junior. Never saw him again because he was just, I'm not putting myself through this again. So it was, that's the one that comes to mind. I'll find out. I'll try to remember.
I'm looking it up.
2001. Yeah.
Oh, that was early 2000s?
2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that right now. Cass, any stories like that?
Yeah, well, not quite like that. I'll give my last year in Ottawa, came into camp, and Eric Carlson showed up to camp, and he probably was 15 to 20 pounds heavier than he normally was.
Yeah.
Probably had a fun summer, did what he had to do. And the ridiculous thing was, even with that, you're kind of like, he was still the best player.
Yeah.
still in better shape than everybody. Like, he was just and still is, like, just such a natural, gifted athlete. And guys are like that, some of them, where they're freaks. And I say that in the best way possible. Like, I remember walking in and seeing him just hop on the parallel rings in the gym, like way up high, and just start doing stuff. And you're like, this is
really
stupid. And he would do that, but just when he came in, like, out of shape. And by the end of camp, he was, it's just like he cut 20 pounds in camp and was back to his normal self. Like, it was just naturally gifted with that. But yeah, I remember him coming in and being like, oh, Carl, like, you're a little heavier than you normally are here. Like, you're usually a pretty light guy that moves really fast. Now he was a little heavier guy that still moved really fast, and it didn't hamper him, I don't think, in one bit.
No.
With that being said, in like a month, he was back down to his normal playing weight. But that was the one where I remember walking in and be like, oh, like, you're a little heavier than you normally are, Carl.
Good summer, hey?
I think part of it was just the shock of, because he was a guy that was so in shape and so fit to be like, it was the abnormality. There we go. Abnormality of the moment, where that one just kind of struck me a little bit.
I know one year Keith Tkachuk, I believe, got sent home from Blues camp to lose like a bunch of weight before he returned to the team. And then remember those pictures of like Dustin Byfuglien on the lake fishing going into the season? There was one as well.
Yeah. You're talking about Buff in the summer too, yeah.
Yeah. One of them he was at a wedding, and it's like, oh, there's a month to camp, and he looks like he's barely fitting into that dress shirt, and the buttons are holding on for dear life. And then you get to camp, and he's one of the best players on the Winnipeg Jets. You're right. Yeah. Like, some of those guys are like natural freaks. Like, they could just turn on a dime and can get their body back into gear, and kudos to them. But Yeah, I always find that fascinating, and we're in that time of year. So having said that, Cass, you did the air quotes with informal optional skates, and last year there was so much discussion around the Oilers and McDavid mandating everybody to be ready to go and to be full throttle into the captain's skates, and it's a big year for the team. It ended up being a horrendous start, but ultimately it was what they expected it to be, where they got to the Stanley Cup final. Now they lose in 7 games, we know that. They seem to be dialing it back, though, this year, and I feel like the consensus, especially around here, most of us would agree, would be, yep, that's probably the right way to go about this, considering their last game was just over 2 months ago.
Yeah, well, that absolutely is it. Is you haven't had a ton of time for your body to recover. You haven't had a ton of time to put muscle back on, because you lose muscle generally over the course of the season. For most guys, if they can maintain, that's usually a good thing. Like if you can maintain your muscle mass over the course of the year, you're doing a pretty good job, because you don't have the ability to lift heavy to try to bulk up, as it were, over the course of a season. And for guys that play a ton of minutes and think of the amount of calories they burn, like a McDavid, like a Draisaitl, it hasn't been that long at all. And you haven't had long to recover and to get your body back and to build muscle to support your frame and your structure and your knees and your shoulders. Like you just haven't had that. And so knowing that you're planning on or wanting to have a really long season again, there is no rush to say we need to be on the ice this early. And I know there was, I think in the group, just a much bigger mindset of like, hey, we can wait a little bit. Like we need to recover and reset and get ourselves ready, because it's going to be a long road. And I think that's the right mindset. I think, as you said, pretty much everybody, unless Joaquin, I don't know where he lands on it. He's crazy because he's a goalie, but
Yeah.
But pretty much everyone would agree with it, right?
Yeah, that's the guy, Tommy. I'm pretty sure it's Christian
Lefebvre.
Yeah, but they don't have a picture. I'm pretty sure it was that guy.
He played for Granby for 2 years, and then Bay Como, and never played an NHL game.
No. Well, he went home because he had enough of working out. Because even in the minors there, he was riding the bike before getting bag skated after practice, and I was shocked because I think he was my roommate for a portion of camp too the first time around, and he didn't take training seriously at all. But even that's changed now, Cass. Like now they monitor what you do. Even the established guys, I think they have to send in reports and where they're at physically to the strength and conditioning guys, don't they?
I don't think you can be mandated to have to send that stuff in, but generally you'll do check-ins, right? And for the guys maybe that they're more concerned about with that, they're going to encourage them to spend time. If it's like a young guy that you hope is going to make your team or might be transitioning to make your team in some years, then you're spending a little bit more time on that monitoring aspect, or you're encouraging them to live in the city that the team is located in to train with your trainer, because then it is hands-on all the time. You're getting to see it all the time. And really it makes sense. I mean, you're pumping money into these guys. You're generally paying them. So you want to make sure that you are going to get the most out of them. Now, the NHLPA has rules around a lot of that and not being able to force players to do it. But there's a pretty fine line between being able to force players and strongly recommending to a player, because I'm not forcing you to say you have to spend time here, or this is the person you have to train with, or you have to hit this weight, or these are the expectations you have to meet. They don't say that, but they'll be like, we strongly recommend you meet all these expectations because it's going to give you the best chance of making our team. As a player, I mean, there's an incredible amount of pressure there. And you have some guys, I let Dustin Bufflin, who are just like, I don't care, I'm just going to do me. But the reality is, for most guys, you're going to cave to that, and understandably so. I mean, you're trying to make that team, keep the team happy, and make that next step from a transition standpoint. But I don't think, as far as I'm aware, like you have to send in any reports or anything. They would generally just do check-ins, and it can be like, hey, send us your stuff so we can kind of check in on you if it's going to help you. That, I think, usually is the mindset.
Gaudreau for a guy like Stu Skinner and a guy like Calvin Pickard. Ollie Rodrigue yesterday was at the NHLPA Rookie Showcase representing the Oilers, and he's a skinnier guy. He's a lanky guy, and Stephen Wino from the Associated Press was nice enough to send a pic from Toronto. I believe it was in Toronto, of Rodrigue that I posted, and people were like, "Man, he's skinny. Man, he's not a rookie. He's been around for a little while now." But for a goalie in the offseason or going into this time of year, especially in the Oilers situation, what do you think for Stu Skinner and Calvin Pickard the focus was?
It's different because Skinner's a big dude.
Yep.
Like, he's a really big man. I've seen pictures. Actually, one of my buddies was at some sort of golf thing with him, and he looks good. Like, it's different training, I think, now for a goalie. Goalies were a little bit bigger when I played. Obviously, I was bigger, like compared to most. Everything started to change a little bit. Guys were
small, and then you were in that phase where it became small, athletic goalies to bigger, taller, thicker blockers, right?
Yeah. Like, I guess you could say there was the conversion to more like Gar Snow, Mike Dunham,
Steve Shields comes to mind.
Like, the guys started getting a lot bigger at that point, where I was considered above average, I think, but I'm only 6'2". Those guys were, 6'3" and beyond. Yeah. So it was getting a lot big. And then obviously the equipment, all the regulations started coming in a little bit more. Everything started to get a little...
Explain that, because we hear Kay Whitmore going around. He has to sign all the gear that gets worn by players or has to get approved.
I think it's a lot easier now because the equipment doesn't expand as much, right? Okay. When I played, there was still a lot of like the synthetic leather and deer hair, I think, in certain parts. Yeah. Right. And so, there were the old stories of Arturs Urbe taking his pads out into the parking lot and driving them over with his car to make them a little wider. Right. So actually Kay Whitmer comes in, it looks like he's bringing samples from Home Depot. Like, they're all these little measuring things that look like little claws, and he just runs them down the sides of the pads, makes sure the width doesn't exceed those limits. And then the height, I think there is, depending on the height of the goalie, you can have so many inches on top. Yes. It depends on those. And then of course the upper pads, blockers, gloves and stuff like that. But everyone's the same now, basically, at this point. It's hard to, and of course, over the course of the year, stuff's going to change. So once he signs it, it's not going to make that much of a difference, but I think it's a lot easier to measure that equipment now than it was when I played, when things were, not the types of materials that were used for the equipment guys just get new stuff at this point. You even mentioned, like, Stu Skinner goes through 3-4 sets of pads a year.
Yeah, Cam Talbot would get a new set of pads every month. Yeah. And a new chest protector every month.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's awesome. Like, but I wasn't a guy, I would have liked probably max 3 pairs of pads a year, right? Okay. A couple pairs of gloves for sure. But it's just, you get to that point where the pads start breaking down. I would say mine around January. It would be nice to get, but then you'd have to go through the whole process of breaking them in again, getting used to them. Yep. Now it's you can throw those bad boys on and get out.
You did that recently, right?
Well, yeah, I actually did in a men's league game. I was scared to death, but I dominated. It was fine.
No big deal.
The stakes weren't as high, Tommy.
Sure. It's Two Guys and a Goalie, presented by GS Construction. Tom Gazzola and Joaquin Gage, the humble, modest goaltender inside the Louisiana Kitchen studio, Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen studio, and then Matty Cassian over at the Satellite Studios. You can text us 780-218-9999 and then get into the nasty chat. Some good texts have come in. I want to read them out. Mike from Calgary says, Hot Dog Phil the Thrill Kessel was an off-season training beast. He says that tongue-in-cheek because I saw Phil Cass at the Ice Den last month, and he looked like he had not touched a weight or did a crunch all summer, and he... Like, the guys would be on the ice for 10 minutes, and then Phil would be rolling into the rink and then hop on for, like, the last 25.
That's great.
It was amazing.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then a couple of people were asking, Corey the Butcher getting in there. Costco, come on, guys. Corey the Butcher, good point. Go see him at Acme Meats. Succulent meats at Acme, and our good friends and partners over there with Corey the Butcher.
It's only if you need cleaning supplies, Corey. That's the only time I go. Other times it's just straight to you.
Straight to you. There you go. Yes. Bones says it should be like NASCAR. The goalie should be measured after every game.
You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
When you're off ice, go.
Yeah, that would
you don't
be
need to.
tough.
You don't need to at this point. It would be pointless.
Yeah.
Waste of time.
Exactly. And I saw another text that came in. It was from Burgerler. Says, boys, the NHL is in trouble because I read today that Patrick Laine is at Habs captain skate. We know how far another team went who had a captain skate, and that was, the Oilers. And I think it still varies team to team, right? So,
well, I mean, if the Oilers were probably didn't make the playoffs or something, you'd probably see them in a little bit earlier. The fact that the season went as long as it possibly could have gone without the benefit of overtime, this is like, I think you even said McDavid rumored to be coming in the next few days.
Yep.
Leon's not even till next week sometime. Right?
Leon end of this week, apparently.
Oh, really?
Connor next week.
Okay,
sounds
so
like. Yeah,
just reverse whatever I just said. But I think that's good. Like I said, and I think captain skates are great. Nothing like getting in, having a good workout and stuff, but I think it would be way more beneficial to get in, have your 3-day workouts, and then take the nucleus of the team that you have a pretty good idea of who's going to be on that team. Maybe even like a young guy that's a bubble guy, and head up to, get out of town, go up to Banff and hang out with the families, go for some hikes, a nice dinner, get ready for the season, get back in and just to build that, what was it called? The vibes? Not that I don't think the Oilers are in need of it, but just to get the vibes going, start a camp, get those everyone talking. It's almost like, when you went on that first road trip of the year, Cass, all together, it was kind of, it felt like you were back at going to your first tournament as like a 9-10-year-old, right? You were all, you're with all your buddies again and can't wait to go have a bite to eat and laugh and tell some stories.
That first plane ride, because when I traveled with the team, it always seemed louder, Cass. There was always like a different energy to it. I remember that. So you said that. Yeah.
Yep.
It's great. We'd always, like, you could see everyone was just giddy for that first road trip and stuff, to get out on the road and just be with your boys.
And the guys would talk. They'd be like, we're going here. We're going for we got team dinner. Everybody's got to come. And you'd be like, that's awesome. Like, you could tell there's camaraderie in that vibe. I love that you described that, because it is a legit thing, and it was kind of neat to witness it. And then at the same time, the media guys would be like, we're going here, we're going here. Yes, we're having drinks tonight. Same thing, but it's that new, it's like going back to school. First day, you're like, all right, I'm happy to go back to school. And then day 2, you're like, oh my God, this sucks. But that's not the same in a hockey situation, because the whole season's a lot of fun. All right, boys, we got that out of the way. We'll see as players continue to trickle in. We'll probably start to get the okay to go down there for coverage, which will be great. I'll head down to the rink when I can, absolutely. And I know Reed wants to get down there as well. So EST is going to be all over it. Cass, I know you make some appearances, and Gager, you have as well, which is excellent, because just the EST representation and coverage, we want to continue to expand and make it better and better. Okay. Guys, I want to talk about this because our Hello Hockey insider, David Pagnotta from the Fourth Period NHL Network Insider, said, expect some news to drop next week on team names, logos, etc. in the PWHL. And the PWHL had, I would say, a successful inaugural season. And it started small, and of course they're going to look to expand, but every team was just Winnipeg, Montreal, Ottawa, Boston, Toronto, like they just went by the city name. So this is exciting. This is good for the game, making sure women have a chance to become pros. And now it seems like this has been solidified, Cass, and I think it is important to mention in the hockey world, is it not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's great for growing the game at a community level, and it's great for growing the game from an NHL standpoint too. I mean, you want girls playing and involved in hockey, and you want a place for them to play pro where they can go and they can earn good money doing it. Now, I like that they have done this. I would say the smart way of not trying to go too big too fast and wanting to be able to build, which is a wise thing to say, hey, let's establish this, let's get it going, let's build it over time, not try to do too much too fast. And it'll be exciting to have some team names and see logos and jerseys and stuff, and that's awesome. I mean, it's something for me. I mean, I dating 4 women, right? Like I got 3 girls at home, and it's always fun and special for me to be able to have something on the TV where my girls can see women playing, and to see that experience, and whether they want to ever do something like that or not, they can know that it's possible, right? And see that it's possible. So it's good. I'm happy for them. I want to see that league thrive and grow and just be self-sustaining and viable. And I think they're doing it the right way from my observations. So yeah, hey, it's exciting, guys. And hopefully at some point we get a team here. That would be great.
I think, and I mentioned Winnipeg, and obviously I was just trying to make the example of they went by city names last year, Minnesota, New York, Boston, Toronto, Ottawa, and I believe Montreal had a team. But the expansion is expected, Gager. And, you guys are both financial guys as well. And one of the big things for the women in pro hockey before, when there was multiple leagues and nobody was on the same page, the finances were a mess. They've got that in order, and it's to the point now where these ladies can build a career and some stability and eventually plan for their futures, maybe have some money put aside. That's got to be a huge part of their life, because you can't play pro forever, just like on the men's side.
Yeah, and you've seen some of the top women players, Nurse especially, doing a lot of advertisement. Like she's putting her brand out there. I think the fact that now you can associate your favorite player to a actual team name and buy the merchandise, I think it's almost like a missed year of opportunity of additional revenue of selling the team's merchandise. I don't think you're going to sell.
Well, but you have to go back and buy new stuff now. So,
I guess,
not necessarily.
There's that, but I think there's more appeal to buying the Grizzlies or whatever name they're going to be. I'm a fan of the Grizzlies. I'm not a fan of the Montreal women's hockey team. It doesn't roll off the tongue, and you can do a little bit more with the designs and things. And I think that appeals to, especially, I mean, I have a daughter. You have way more than I do, Cass. You go to the store and start looking at stuff. They're finding the items that appeal to them, like how it looks and things like that, especially when you go shopping. So, it's going to be even the ability for these women to make even more now that I think that they're going to start naming these teams is even greater. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a good thing. And I'm fully expecting and anticipating it to expand from 6 teams to, I don't know if they're going to double it right away like the NHL did back in '67, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the expansion move.
I'm not saying they were going to expand, but I think it would be a mistake to double it right away.
No, double it, yeah.
No. Incremental growth.
Incremental growth.
Yeah.
Incremental growth. Like I said, you want to make sure you stay viable, and so you're not, you don't want to run into any financial challenges or issues. So do it at a reasonable, responsible rate of growth and expansion.
6 teams right now: Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Minnesota, Ottawa, New York. A successful first season for the PWHL. Looks like they're getting primed and ready to get those logos and team names ready to go. And that is excellent to see. Some big financial backers and sponsorships as well on the PWHL side. Look for that to continue to expand. I saw that Toronto is moving from former Maple Leaf Gardens, Ryerson. I know it's no longer called Ryerson. I believe it's called University of Toronto or Metro Toronto, something like that. They're going to the Coca-Cola Center, which is the old Ricoh Coliseum. I think that's where the Marlies play. So that, I think, is a good sign, an indicator as to where that league is going.
Sign. Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. And that'd be a good size building. I mean, hopefully they can pack it out.
Yeah.
But even if you don't pack it out every night, like if you get a decent crowd base, it'll still feel very full. and would be a good building to watch hockey in. Actually, one of my speaking of Rico Coliseum, one of my the funniest things that I ever saw happen in a hockey game happened at that building.
What?
So we were playing. So I was with Houston. We were playing the Marlies in town. And NHL teams sometimes, you know how they have like the player of the game, like the little kid that comes out for the NHL. Well, sometimes like in the A, different teams will do different things. The Marlies had where they had a whole kids minor hockey team. So probably like age 7-ish or 8. The whole team that was going to come stand on the blue line with the starting lineup for the Marlies for the national anthems. Now that building, if you've ever been in there, and I don't know what renovations they've done since I played there, but it's a pretty dark building. Like it's not
old.
Yeah, it's not extremely well lit, even when the lights are full up. Like it's just a darker rink. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so it's a dark rink to begin with, and then all the lights are off for the players coming out in the national anthems. You have a couple spotlights, but it's dark. And so they have the team, and the minor hockey team has to skate from the way that building works for the dressing room and for that team. And for us too, is like you don't walk in through the bench. Is like you have a gate at the far end, kind of in the corner of the rink of like the visiting team defending end. That's where you skate out. Now the kids, the dressing room that they use, you walk down that same path, like same tunnel kind of by the Zamboni entrance where you then hop on the ice. So we're already on the bench. You're standing up waiting for the kids to come out and for the national anthem to come. So I can't remember what the team name was, but the little kids team gets announced. And so these kids start skating out, and you have people that are trying to kind of direct them and guide them. But just like any kids, if you have kids or you've seen kids, is like when you skate out into a situation like that, you're looking for your parents, you're looking for whoever brought you that's with you in the stands. Like you're looking up and you're like waving, or you're just taking in the spectacle because it's like there's fans in the stands, and it's like it's a big experience for them. And so none of these kids are paying attention to where they're going. Now what they're supposed to do, because you have cameras and you have cords from the cameras and you have the red carpet for like the ceremonial puck drop and the anthem singer out there, like right at center. And so these kids one by one are skating in front of us by the bench, and they're hitting the carpet because they're looking up at the stands and going down one after another. So there's like 15 to 20 kids. And I kid you, like it was like, the first couple go, and then everyone in the crowd sees it at this point. So people are like cheering and screaming and laughing, right? Like because this is happening like one after the other. And then it's like you see like 3 or 4 kids go down, and then it's like the 5th one kind of sees, and it's like they start to see that kids are falling and that they're supposed to go around this thing. So they're trying, but they're little, so they don't know how to stop. They can't really turn that well yet. And so they're like trying to turn to get around this, and most of them are still catching it and going down. And there's like 1 or 2 that squeeze by, like that manage to cut it and get around so they don't go down. And the crowd is just going absolutely nuts, right? Like everyone's just losing it and cheering like for the one kid that makes it by. But it was quite literally like, I think 12 or 13 out of like the 15 or 16 kids hit this carpet, and everyone on the bench, like you're dying, like just absolutely howling. You're trying to stay focused, but you can't, because these kids just one after another, just boom, 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 just hitting that carpet over and over, just like a big pile of them. And I mean, they're all fine, and just you get up and go across and go skate to the far blue line. But it really was like, as far as like the game day experience, it was like one of the funniest things that I ever seen. Like now I have to go out and play a hockey game, but like, oh my goodness, I was just absolutely dying. So sorry to deviate, but it was just one of the funniest things I'd ever seen in a hockey game.
It's like when you see like the kids playing football that try to rip through the banner and it doesn't rip, and they all fall down. And the same thing. I'd be howling.
Same thing.
I'll be howling. Speak of the devil, One-Eyed Pete, thanks for the tweet. The Oilers must have heard us talking about him. Leon Draisaitl, as we expected, is on the ice for the informal skates today. So there you go. We expected him late in the week. It is Thursday.
That's what it tells me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. There you go. Okay, let's quickly get to an edition of Hire It or Fire It presented by GS Construction. GS Construction, hiring now. Become a part of their great team today by visiting gsconstruction.ca or their page on indeed.ca. For the past 50 years, the foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, and safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction. Hire it or fire it. We were just talking about the PWHL. In 5 years, there's a team here in Edmonton. Cass.
Hire it. Yeah. Inside of 5 years, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a big market. It'd be a great market. Another Canadian one for it. You have a lot of girls that play hockey here. I think you'd have a good fan base for it, hopefully. So yeah, hire.
Joaquin?
Yeah, I agree with Kaz. It's going to grow, and I think this market can sustain a professional women's hockey team.
100%. Hire it. I'll follow that up with hire it or fire it. We see the amount of teams in the PWHL doubled in the next 5 years from 6 to 12. Gager?
I'm going to fire it. I don't want it doubled. I think parity is a necessity in that league right now, where every game is competitive, and I just worry that if you water down the talent level, you don't want to see a team getting beat by 12 goals, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you don't want. You want this to grow, I think, obviously, but I think at a slower pace, and make sure that any expansion isn't going to take away from the talent of the league.
Cass?
Yeah, fire it was for not double, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm going to fire it because I don't think that that's the wise decision. Agree with Gager. I think you want to make sure that your talent pool is there. Want to make sure that the quality of hockey is there, because you want it to keep being good hockey and great hockey. So yeah, I'm going to fire it.
Fantastic. We talked about the PWHL getting ready to unveil logos, team names, all that stuff. I bring that up because yesterday at the NHLPA Rookie Showcase presented by Upper Deck, Utah Hockey Club's debut of its on-ice uniform and setup was made public in the flesh. And Gager, you can look at it right now.
I saw it.
And so I think this is very apropos. People were praising the renderings and graphics of these jerseys and uniforms. I thought they were absolutely boring as you know what. Hire it or fire it. Cass, if you have to look it up on your computer really quickly, I'll go to Gager. Utah Hockey Club's uniforms suck.
I'm going to fire it because I'm going to fire it.
Okay.
Because I'm going to agree with Cass originally with they're going to have to change it, and there's opportunity for a logo to come in and sell more merch. This will become their original jersey, so to speak, and then they can go from there. It's a little bit different. I know you're the aficionado, the jersey aficionado. On the cover of the magazine each month is Tom Gazzola of jerseys. We haven't seen something like this. Let's see what it looks like under the bright lights. I want, you saw the Kraken jersey. It still looked good, but then under the lights, it looked really good. Yeah. So I'm gonna reserve my full judgment until game one.
All right, that's like glass half full. Look at it. Go ahead, Cass.
I'm gonna fire it. They don't suck.
They suck.
They don't suck. I think you could have done. It would have been really easy to do more. Like I think of some of the just classic, British football logos, like for teams that are just.
Thank you.
Like you could have had something very simple. So I don't think they suck. I don't think they suck. I don't love them. I don't think they suck. But I'm like, you could have just put even if you just had like a white circle with UHC in the blue in it, and then you had like established 2024 at the top or something. Like you could have done something like that. Really, really, really simple. Like not put too much time into it. And just had UHC on the front or something. I was like, that could have looked pretty cool. But I don't think they suck. I don't love them. I do like the colors. I think the colors are going to look great.
Sure.
They'll look great under the lights. Like it's going to be a sharp looking jersey, sharp color combo. So I can't say they suck. I don't love them. I don't even like them, but I'm not like, oh, those suck. I'm just like, I'm disappointed, but I'm not at the point where I can say they suck. So I got to fire it.
Should have been Vodafone across the right? Like just get some extra advertisement.
A little familiarity there. I'm going to hire it. I think they're terrible uniforms, but I agree with you, Cass. The colors are good. And then the Utah Hockey Club announcing its broadcast team. Friend of the station and just friend in general, Matt McConnell will be the play-by-play announcer on the TV side, and also new friend, Nick Olczyk, Eddie Olczyk's son, will be an analyst. The other Parts of the crew will be Kim Becker, who's the studio host. Sarah Merrifield will be the ringside reporter, and Dominic Moore, who I think most hockey fans are pretty familiar with, will join Nick Olczyk as an analyst. So lots of exciting things happening there for the Utah Hockey Club outside of their uniforms. All right, boys, that was Hire It or Fire It, brought to you by GS Construction. One final thought as we wrap up the show. I'll let all of us touch on it really quickly, but I want to send a shout out to everybody in Calgary yesterday. They held a candlelight vigil for Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Gaudreau. You know, a week ago we heard the awful news, or almost a week ago it was officially announced, and we talked about it on Friday's Nielson show, and it rocked the hockey world. And I just think the Flames did an outstanding job, and it was touching to see Oilers fans and some signs, you know, in support of Johnny Gaudreau, saying, put away the Battle of Alberta. We're all hockey fans. Everybody's hurt. So I just want to give a hat tip, stick tap, whatever you want to call it, to everybody down there that showed up. And a lot of friends that work with the Flames and around the Flames, seeing their post was pretty heartfelt. Joaquin, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's we've said it. It's extremely sad. We lost a special person. By all accounts, better person than he was a hockey player, which is saying something.
Yeah.
He'll be missed, but I like that he's going to be in our thoughts for a long time.
Absolutely. Cass, final word to you.
Yeah, for a community that would have had Johnny Gaudreau be a part of it for a long time, it was good. Hard to see, hard to watch. But it was good, and hopefully, you know, for people that are feeling it, and for his teammates that played with him for a long time, that were there to have an opportunity to speak and to grieve and to have support of the community, and to see people come together. It's again a tragic and hard thing, but seeing some of that support is a beautiful thing too. So was great to see. Was great to see in the midst of what's just still a horrible situation.
Very well said, boys. The Columbus Blue Jackets 2 hours ago putting out a note. A memorial service for family and close friends of John and Matthew Gaudreau will be held Monday, September 9th at 12 p.m. That's Eastern time. Given the outpouring of love and number of people wishing to honor their lives, a live stream will be available on the Blue Jackets website. So there you go. Guys, great show as always. Thank you for letting me step in for Dusty and work alongside both of you. Cass, great job. Enjoy the rest of that lasagna. And Gager, you and Hernan Salas have EST afternoons coming up in the next couple of minutes. For Joaquin and Maddie, I am Tom Gazzola saying thank you, and stay tuned for EST afternoons with the Latino Heat and Joaquin Gage. Ciao for now.